Ready?
Ready.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the latest episode of Snitchin'. It's your host, Kristen.
And Brittany, get ready for the best part of your day.
We are so excited for this episode. A couple of months in the making from when she was last on the pod. We have with us our guest, Heather, one of our besties. She was one of our very first guests.
Yeah, a fan favorite guest, I will say. Heather's
Yes,
episode did well.
Heather's episode is still one of our very best episodes. I
Yeah.
don't know if you knew that, Heather.
I did not. Well, I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you. Last time Heather was here, we did a segment called 13 Questions. I think some of our questions on that, it was one of the first times we did it. I'm pretty sure we asked you ballet flats or heels or something like that, like some pretty light stuff. Today, we're going to be getting into more substantial, serious topics. We're going to be talking about all things family planning with Heather, her experience with IVF, one of the organizations that she's a huge supporter for. I'm also going to talk about my egg freezing journey. And then we're going to get into discussions around adoption and surrogacy. So it's going to be a jam packed episode. And we're so excited to have you here. I guess, kind of starting off, when we last had you, one of the last things we really talked about was Emma's Footprints, which is an amazing organization that you are very involved with. So, kind of want to start the conversation there. Just remind the snitches how they're talking about Emma's Footprints, how you got involved, and anything you want to share.
Awesome. So, yeah, so just to recap, so I am very involved in an organization called Emma's Footprints, and they are an organization that specifically helps families that have been through either a pregnancy or infant loss. It can be at any stage. So, even if you've had an early stage miscarriage, don't feel strange about reaching out. They support people at you know, any stage of pregnancy loss, again, and also infant loss. And I think I briefly shared this on the last episode, but one of the reasons why I got involved is my husband, Owen, and I have a very personal connection to that. So in July of 2021, we lost our daughter, Lyla, at 2 weeks old. And, it was just a very obviously devastating and isolating thing that happened to us. And we didn't know anybody, in our personal lives that had ever been through anything like that. So I actually found Emma's through just kind of searching online. I love podcasts, and I actually just typed into Spotify infant loss, and their podcast came up. And it kind of so they do multiple things to support families, one of them being a weekly podcast where they have women come on and share their stories. So that was something that was really helpful for me. I must have listened to almost every episode they had, and it just really made me feel less alone. And it just helped me feel okay, other people have been through this, and, there's another side to it. Not that, things get better at a certain point, grief is just an ongoing thing. But that's something that really helped me. So probably maybe a year and a half later, I was pretty friendly with the founder. So I had kind of reached out to see if there's anything else that I could do specifically to help other women, because I felt like at that point I could really, be a supporter myself and try and help other people. So I reached out, and they have something called Care Team Moms. So I was paired with another mom that had a loss similar to mine. She lost her son. He had a very rare heart defect at a week and a half old and also passed away. So I was kind of a mentor for her. I still speak with her pretty often. And so, yeah, so that was kind of the first thing that I did, with Emma's Footprints, getting, more involved with their organization. And then also just recently, I kind of reached back out because I also shared my story on their podcast. And, just in talking to the people that work there, this is a little bit of a tangent, but my work background is in event marketing. And I had said, I'd love to do an event one day, in Boston. So I've been in the kind of early stages of working with them on planning a Boston walk that is likely going to happen early May And it's going to be a memorial walk that anybody can participate in and get involved in. I don't have the link yet or anything to sign up, but once I do, I'm happy to share that.
Can I comment on your podcast episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought it up. I feel like when I like hearing that podcast was like the most emotional like podcast I've ever listened to, like just so locked in. But like hearing you, I mean, you obviously told Lila's story like in detail. And I feel like the first time I heard it was like right after, and it was just like completely different. It was so hard for you to talk about it. It was so hard for everyone.
Yeah.
And then just to hear you talk about it, I mean, and you still got emotional and stuff on the pod, but just to be able to speak about it like confidently and like all the stuff you've done to help other people, it's just like so inspiring. It makes me so proud to be your friend.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
100%.
listen to it.
Like, I'm just so glad that you found community, of people who can
Yeah.
really understand. Like, I think as one of your friends, and Britt, I feel like you feel the same way. Like, we wanted nothing more than to be there for you, but we also, we don't know what that feels like. And so
Right.
hearing like you retell your story, I felt like there were things that I didn't even know about how
Hmm.
you felt while you were going through it. And it was like really awesome as your friend to get to hear that insight. And to anyone who might be going through this, I mean, hopefully this episode reaches people who, can listen and feel, yeah, like
It
support.
resonates with them. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Like that's something I'm assuming that you would kind of recommend, right? Is like reach out to try to find those connections.
Yes. Yeah. And I think everyone's experience is so different. Like, so people might not want to reach out right away, but really, like, there's no right time to do that. And like, whenever you feel like you want to reach out for help in any way, again, for me, really like talking about it really helps me. And again, talking with other people that have been through similar situations is just something that was like super helpful for me throughout my grief journey and just trying to help other people, and it's something that I'm like super passionate about. So yeah.
It's amazing. You now obviously have Owen. He is so stinking cute. And he's turning 2, right? Coming
Yeah,
up.
he'll be 2 in October.
And you and your husband, Owen, I feel like we are like big O. We always say like
Oh,
little
big
O.
O.
But you went through IVF. So kind of talking with that, like maybe just a little bit of your experience with
Yeah.
IVF and when you started that
Yes.
process.
Yep. So we reached out to a fertility specialist probably about 6 months after Lyla passed away. And to give a little more background onto why we decided to do that, and because we didn't have issue like fertility issues when we were conceiving Lyla, so it's a little complicated because I think a lot of people think of IVF or fertility treatments specifically for people that are having a hard time getting pregnant or for fertility preservation or things like that. There's so many different things that and reasons people would do IVF. So one of the reasons that we had reached out was a genetic reason. So Lila passed away due to a genetic condition, and we wanted to do IVF so that our future children wouldn't be affected by that. So that was the main reason that we had reached out to a fertility doctor. My OB at the time was like a great support, and I believe like sent me like 3 or 4 different places to look into. We decided to go with Boston IVF and had an amazing experience with them. So again, that was about 6 months after Lila passed away. And I was in no means like immediately ready to like, okay, we want to like, move forward like right away. But my experience was like, again, just a very unique experience because when I was pregnant with Lila, I had a full term, like 9-month pregnancy and delivered her, and she passed away. And so it was just a very unique experience because like essentially like I was pregnant that whole time and then it was like taken away from me. It's just like a very strange feeling to like I was so ready to like be a mom and like have her here, and then she was gone. So like I did have this like really strong feeling that like I wanted to be a mom so badly and I like wanted to do that like as soon as possible. again, like physically, like probably, wasn't really ready at that 6 month mark. But again, like everyone's so different and kind of like how they feel. But like I just like had this really strong feeling that I wanted to, be proactive and make sure that we could, start thinking about that. So anyway, so we worked with Boston IVF for, I believe that next like year or so. That was in like the winter of 2021 going into 2022. It's so crazy like looking back now because it's like fall of 2025. It feels
Right.
like so long ago, but like not at the same time.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we started out with an egg retrieval. So if you're doing IVF, that's the first part of the process. And it's it's funny because like I feel like when I knew nothing about IVF. I didn't know anybody that did it. And so I also kind of like leaned into like social media and finding people that like were sharing their stories. So like I went a lot on like Instagram, and I think TikTok was kind of coming out at that time. People that were like sharing their IVF journeys, and it was like helpful because they kind of went through like a day in the life of like what they were doing. But anyway, so we did an egg retrieval. So that's kind of the first part of the process. I had to do the IVF injections for that. I think I did that for like close to 2 weeks. And basically, you go in closer to the end, like almost every other day for monitoring. And you're injecting yourself with hormones so that you can get as many viable eggs as possible for the egg retrieval. And closer to the end, they're just monitoring to make sure that, they're at the right stage to do the retrieval. And again, just making sure that you're getting as many as you can. So my egg retrieval was super successful, and I definitely was like overstimulated. I actually got 92 eggs.
Oh, I don't think
Um,
I knew that.
yeah.
I remember that.
So it was my doctor at the time actually said to me, she was like, I actually don't even know if because they have like egg donors and stuff come in and do the same type of thing. She was like, I don't even think that I had an egg donor have this many eggs. So it was obviously a good problem to have. And we were able to, have embryos out of that. And we did genetic testing. So that was kind of my egg retrieval part of that. And Kristen, I know that, you have a personal experience with that. So I don't know if you want to share your part of that as well
Yeah,
before
I
I kind of go
mean,
into next steps.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like what you said was like about the resources. I definitely agree. I feel like I listened to Armchair Expert, plug again, but Monica Padman, the one of the co-hosts or the co-host, she did this like spin-off with her friend Liz called Race to 35. And they documented every day that they went through the process of the egg retrieval, which was like 2 weeks. I
Mhm.
found it so, so helpful. I feel like agreed with you. I didn't know anything about the process, and I didn't even know that egg freezing was the first part to IVF. I
Right.
feel like the one of the first episodes, it totally resonated with me because you're going in, and it's kind of, at least for me, it was a little bit of a process to get there. I think you start by figuring out where you're going to go. I also used Boston IVF, fantastic experience, but you got to go in, get your blood work, kind of see what your baseline levels are. Then you have to have a follow up with the doctor, and then you have to figure out when your cycle is, order the medication. So I want to say I
Oh,
started the process in July and didn't actually start the egg freezing injections until October. So it was kind of like, waiting around a little bit. And then all of a sudden it's like go time. And I remember the first day they send you home with all of the medication. I think everyone kind of has a different, cocktail, if you will, about what you're going to be having.
right.
And I remember being like, I feel like they're like having me do chemistry. Like, I hate
Yeah, right.
science. Like, what am I doing here? I have to get the right amount in the syringe. Like, it was just very overwhelming. And they said that in the pod. They were like, what the hell are we doing here? Like, they just expect all, but then it's also, there's comfort, right? Because everyone's nervous doing this. And, if they're having all of these people, all these women do this at home, like you can do it too. So I just want to say also, like, definitely look for resources, social media, podcasts. I totally agree. I felt like, I think one of the things that I left the whole experience with was, I just felt grateful that I felt like my situation was, easier than most people have it when it comes to egg freezing. I wasn't, I didn't have like a timeline that I was really wanting to hit, or I wasn't actively trying to get pregnant. I was really doing this just, for the future, for my future self. And I was surprised at how emotional the toll was, because you're going in every few days for these ultrasounds and these follicle counts. So basically, like Heather said, you're trying to get as many like follicles as you can, and you have to get them to a certain size. You go in every few days and they like tell you how many you have in each ovary and like what size they are. And I remember like feeling like I was almost like passing a test or something. Like, how's my body doing? Like, am I, and if I remember one of the appointments, I didn't have a great, or I didn't think at the time I didn't have a great outcome. And I felt like so disappointed. I almost like was hard on myself about it, which logically, is not a good, like, that's not a logical thought. Like, I can't help what my body produces. But at the same time, like, you kind of can't help the emotional reaction of feeling like you're not doing well or something. So,
Yeah.
there's that definitely like that emotional toll that I didn't expect, plus all the hormones you're pumping into your body. Like, obviously there's going to be some side effects from that too. So yeah, that was definitely something like I would say if anyone's going through this, I wasn't necessarily expecting, and like it's totally normal. I was very lucky that I got 20 good eggs at the end of it. So I felt really, happy with the results, but that was probably one of the takeaways that I had that I wasn't prepared for.
Do
Yeah,
you
I
guys
feel like
think you
that's,
could, oh, sorry.
I know,
I was
go
going to say,
ahead, Brett.
just to take a step back, maybe because like I feel like we're saying not a lot of people know about IVF.
Yeah.
What's like, I guess, more about like the process of freezing your eggs? So like July through October, what were you doing? Like blood tests and stuff? And then like how do they determine your cocktail?
Yeah. So I can kind of explain my experience, and then Kristen, if you want to add anything. So again, everyone has kind of like a different timeline, but
Interesting.
basically, so we had like our first consultation, and then if you have any type of insurance coverage, that definitely plays a part in it as well. So,
Mm,
our healthcare system just being the way that it is, I was fortunate to have most of our IVF cycle covered by insurance, which is great. But then at the same time, insurance definitely delays a big part
mm,
of that. So basically, you have your consult with the doctor, and then you're kind of set up with the financial coordinator that works there. She then puts everything, or she or him puts everything together and is sent to the insurance company. And then it's kind of like a waiting game. You're just like, okay, is this going to get approved or denied? That can take like
oof.
4 to 6 weeks, I believe, at least
That
for
must
us.
be like painful if you're like really
Yeah,
wanting to get pregnant. That must
yeah,
suck.
exactly. So I think for us, it took like a month. So that's kind of like you meet, and then there's kind of a pause to get all that done, if it's approved or not. And then once it's approved, like Kristen said, you meet with the doctor again and kind of have like another appointment talking more specifically about like, okay, this is what we're going to do for you specifically, because you also have different ultrasounds and blood work. And based on how your results come back from like your ultrasounds and blood work is kind of how they put together the injections that you're going to do. So, like, I
Crazy.
think I had maybe 3 different things that I was taking. But again, for me, like, they wanted to make sure that like I was getting as many as possible, within reason. And so like I definitely think that like I was probably overstimulated and didn't need that much, because I also do have PCOS. So people that have PCOS start out with a lot of follicles to begin with. So like my
Mm,
baseline like is like 20 to 25 to begin with, like just like there. So
mm,
that's why I ended up having like 92 eggs,
mm.
because there was just so many. So yeah,
Yeah,
Interesting.
that was my experience.
same. That's a good call. I also, yeah, the beginning is like just figuring out your insurance situation. I would definitely say my cousin actually was the one we were talking about this, who was like, you definitely need to see what benefits your company provides. I was lucky
Mm,
that my company did have a great relationship with this third party provider called Carrot, and they were like so fantastic, really simple to use, really helped me get set up to, figure out what I had covered. So I would definitely say like step one, make
that's
sure you
awesome.
take a look at the benefits that you have. But yeah, same. It was really just getting the blood work, having to book the appointment. I think my doctor wasn't available for a few months. And then, like Heather said, they just take a look at like what your body composition is and like give you your specific meds. I also had like one injection, and then I think I had like two pills.
Yeah.
You do it for 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
It,
Well,
yeah, it can be anywhere from like, I think they originally told me like it could be less than that. So like could be 7 or 8 days. Like it could be like maybe a week, all the way up to like 2 weeks or a little longer. Again, it just depends on like when you're going in for those repeated ultrasounds, they want to make sure that your follicle size is getting to like the most mature possible. I don't know why I remember this, but I feel like it's like anywhere from like 19 to like 22 was kind of like, I remember like I kind of similar to what Kristen said, like going in like every other day and I was like, oh my gosh, are my follicles going to grow? Are they going to be the
Yeah,
right
it's like a
size? And it's like,
test.
it's so much like there's already so much like kind of like pressure on it and like anxiety. And then it just like creates more of like, oh my gosh, is this going to be right? Am I going to have to do more shots? Is it going to like work? It's yeah.
yeah. Now that you say that, like I forgot about the timeline. We were going to Eras Tour, Brit, in Florida. And I remember being like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go because
Oh, right.
they tell
Yeah.
you as you go, like so I remember
Yes.
being like very much on the cusp of like, okay, they're going to schedule me for this day or not, but it's all just depending on how, yeah, the follicles are growing. Also, one thing I remember, I might be like fudging this a little bit, but I want to say like the first day is the scariest day. And at least for me, it was.
Or
And
doing the shots.
yeah. And
Yeah.
for me, like after day two, I was like, I got this. Like, it's
I mean,
okay.
props to you too. Like doing it alone would be scary.
Thanks.
Yes, 100%, Kristen, because Owen did the shots for me and I don't like needles at all. I mean, now I'm like totally fine with it just because at this point I've had like so many different things with blood work and the shots for all of this. And then when you're doing transfers, there's things with that too. But to actually do it like on your own is yeah, you should be really proud about that.
Thanks, friends. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But the first day, they give you like a specific time. Do you remember that, Heather?
Yes. Yep.
Oh,
They're
to
like,
do the shot?
yeah, and
Yes.
it's a
Oh my God,
random
that's so much
time.
pressure.
They're
Hmm.
like 8:11 p.m. Like, get your shot in. I
What?
remember that first day, I was like
Yep.
pacing around my kitchen, just like, when is it going to be 8:11? Like, just
Yes.
stressed
Oh,
that. And then,
Actually, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go.
So I actually have like a story about that. So it wasn't for my egg retrieval, and I'll get into kind of like next steps after the egg retrieval, but for one of the transfers that I did, again, to Kristen's point, like everything is so specific on like when you have to do things. And again, people have different protocols on what's going to work for them to once you get past the egg retrieval for the transfer process. But I had to do something called a trigger shot, which essentially like induces ovulation and make sure that it's like setting you up for the best scenario to be able to get pregnant. And actually, the specific day that I had to do that, I had a work event. And and I was like leading and like managing the event.
Oh my
And
God.
luckily my company has been really supportive of this the whole time. And my boss like knew obviously everything that happened with Lyla. She knew we were doing IVF. So like I told her ahead of time and I was like, oh, just as an FYI, like my husband's like actually going to be driving in to like give me the shot. I'm just
God.
going to go run out and he's just going to give me the shot. Like I literally, he was like, hey, I'm here. He like parked outside of the hotel and I
Oh
ran
my God.
outside and he gave me the shot like in the car.
Heather,
Oh,
that's great. I mean, not crazy is not the right
Yeah.
word, but
it's
like,
crazy
oh
that
my
it's
God.
like that important
Yeah,
that you
because
knew.
Yes.
to Kristen's point, I forget what time it was, but I think it was, yeah, like mine was also like late. So like maybe like 8 o'clock or something. And I was like, all right, I'll be right back. Like I'll be back in 10.
Just doing a quick errand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, don't mind me.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
oh my gosh. Well, yeah, so that is step one of the IVF process, and that's all I went through. But what happens
Yeah.
after that?
Yep. So basically, if you get through the egg retrieval successfully, and I don't want to really like, because I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. I know some people have a hard time with the egg retrieval process. Luckily for me, like that wasn't an issue, but I know some people have to do multiple egg retrievals. They're not able
Hmm.
to get viable embryos. So like I definitely think that that is like a big part of the process. So anyway, so for me, we were able to successfully get embryos. So then from there, you meet with your doctor again and basically come up with a plan to do a transfer protocol, is what they call it, and transferring the embryo. So from there, I think, again, for us, we had our embryos genetically tested, which took like a month and a half. So that kind of like put a pause a little bit on it. I know some people do an egg retrieval and then like a couple weeks later do a transfer. For us, I think it was like 2 months or so later. And so again, my personal journey with that part of the process, I didn't have a great experience. Nothing to do with Boston IVF at all. But unfortunately, we did not have like success with that. So I did 3 transfers. Our first transfer resulted in something called a chemical pregnancy. It's essentially an early term miscarriage, but the transfer was successful and worked. You go in, I think it's 2 weeks later to do blood work. And I was like on my blood work confirmed pregnant, but then had to do repeated blood tests. And my numbers were just like so all over the place. And it ultimately was not a viable pregnancy. So then from there, we then met with our doctor again, decided to do another transfer. And we, I believe, kept the protocol the same. So I was on some like oral medication to kind of like, I think, help with progesterone and again, helping you to have to become pregnant in the best scenario. That transfer was just completely didn't work at all. So I will say that was like a really hard thing.
Mm.
I know, it's so weird because it's like it's it's just an embryo. So it's like it's not like anything. It's really hard to like kind of like think back on. But like I remember when I went in for blood work and they were like, I'm sorry, it didn't work. And it's just like such an awful feeling
Yeah.
to like have gone through all of that and be like, oh, okay, well,
Especially when you're carrying around the weight of like the
yeah.
grief.
And again, I just like wanted to be pregnant so badly. And I was like, "Ugh, okay." So that was the second time we met with our doctor again for a third time. I was like, at that point, like, I was like, should we do it again? Like, should we look at other options? And they had said, and I think, again, every clinic is different, but what they had said to us was most people are able to get pregnant off of 3 tries. So once you do three separate transfers, if you were to have like 3 miscarriages or 3 failed transfers, then they would kind of look into like more like, okay, what is really going on here and why isn't this working? I forget the percentage of people, but I think it's pretty high. Like I think I want to say they said like 90% of people are able to get pregnant off of like 3 cycles. And then if that doesn't work, then they kind of like reevaluate. So that third transfer, they did more medication and did something called a medicated, like a fully medicated cycle. So, and they didn't really understand why I had to do that because again, when we had our daughter, I didn't do any intervention. I got pregnant naturally. There was no like fertility, like
Hmm.
part of that. Like I
Component.
just got pregnant naturally and it was fine. So for this one, I had to do medication leading up to the transfer. And then I had to do something called PIO injection shots, which is like progesterone and oil, which are terrible.
Uh,
And again, it's just making sure that you have enough progesterone to support a pregnancy. You actually have to do them in your butt. It's like really painful.
I thought you had
And
to
so,
do them all in your butt. You
um,
know?
no, not all of them.
Oh.
No, I had the ones for my egg retrieval were in my stomach.
same.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's nice.
So anyway, so yeah, that one was kind of like a little more intense because I was like, oh wow, like I guess I have to do a little more and hopefully this works. So, but I was like, yep, I'll just do whatever it takes. So we did that leading up. And then also, throughout the pregnancy, we were going to kind of continue to do that. So that pregnancy was successful. And, I was so excited. We were like, okay, this finally worked. And then unfortunately, I ended up having a miscarriage right around 8 weeks. So that was really devastating. And we had to do a DNC because it's when you have a miscarriage, it's like it's just such a wild experience because like you're basically told like, I'm so sorry, this, the pregnancy isn't where it's supposed to be, or, it's not going to continue, it's not going to be viable. And at least for me, one of the first ultrasounds that I had, it kind of like it wasn't where it was supposed to be, but they were like, well, let's give it another week and you can just come back. And you're just kind of like in this waiting game. And it's like, okay, well, that's like doesn't sound good, but I guess we'll just wait.
Right.
And so I had to like wait another week. I went back in again. And then at that point, there was no heartbeat. And that's when they kind of give you a option of either doing a DNC, so surgery to remove the pregnancy, or you can also do oral medication to essentially have a natural miscarriage. I opted to do the DNC just because having a miscarriage on your own, not that the surgery like is like a great option, but like is I've heard is like a very traumatic situation. I mean, you're essentially like just miscarrying on your own and it's
Yeah.
just, I was like, I've already been through like a lot of traumatic things, so I would rather not
Just get it over with.
add to my thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was like, I just, this obviously isn't going to work. So I decided to do the DNC and had to go to their like inpatient center to have that done. That was in November of 2022.
Yeah,
So
wait,
yeah,
so so how long was this all? Like the three transfers, was that like a year?
yeah, that was like about a
Yeah,
year that we went through that. So
that's a long time.
it was really, yeah, it was kind of like a dark time of like that. I was like, how did I, you know, we obviously lost our daughter and then went through a year of IVF and like we weren't any closer to bringing home like a healthy baby. So yeah, that was in November of 2022. At that point, I had just kind of said to my husband, Owen, and again, he was like so supportive of the whole entire process and was like amazing. So I don't want to overshadow that. And was kind of like, whatever you want to do, like whatever you feel comfortable with. Like he didn't want to push me to do like anything more than I wanted. So I just wanted to kind of like take a break for a little bit because again, it was just like so much and I just felt like we had like just not been, it just
Yeah.
wasn't successful. So we decided to take a little bit of a break. We went on a vacation to Puerto Rico at the start of that year in 2023. And that's when we started to talk about kind of different options. And we mainly at that point were thinking about adoption. And I actually met with a few different adoption agencies, really got some information on that. And we actually met with one agency that we really were actually going to move forward with. We had an application, we had consult calls. I kind of understood the process. And then we ended up getting pregnant naturally. Really, again, we weren't really trying at that time with our son, Owen. So that was in March of 2023. So it was just like such a surreal experience because like we had filled out this adoption paperwork. We're like literally going to put it in the mail. And like, I kid you not, like then like it was like that day or that like 2 days later, I
Oh my
found out I was
God.
pregnant.
That's crazy
Chills.
timing.
I also found out I was pregnant on my grandma's birthday.
Yes, love.
And yeah, my grandma's like was one of my favorite people. And she passed away that January. And so yeah, so I always think that like it's a sign from her and Lyla. But anyway, so because we got pregnant naturally with Owen and because of everything that happened with Lyla, it was just a very like scary time because I just
Mhm.
didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if he was going to be affected by this genetic condition. And luckily, I think it was right around 10, 11 weeks when you can do blood work to find out the sex of the baby. We found out he was a boy. And with this condition, a boy actually can't be born with it because it's an X-linked genetic condition. So that was kind of the only thing that we felt a little more comfortable with, because basically if the baby was a boy and was affected by it, you would likely have a miscarriage in the first trimester. So once we found out that, had good scans at 12 weeks, we had like a mini anatomy scan at like 16 weeks, everything looked good. So that was good. But then from there, I unfortunately didn't have a great pregnancy myself, nothing to do with him. He was healthy and great, but I had a lot of placenta issues in my pregnancy, and I ended up developing something called placenta accreta, which essentially it's like a very rare condition where your placenta attaches to the uterus, and it makes it very difficult for delivery. And most babies are delivered early. I was at Newton Wellesley at the time. I had to be transferred to the Brigham, and my care was transferred there because most hospitals can't even deliver a pregnancy with that condition just because it's like very life-threatening. So I was then transferred to the Brigham and saw one of their high risks MFMs for the rest of my pregnancy. I think I went in like every week from like 24 weeks on. And I can stop at any point because I feel like I'm just kind of
No, I
telling you.
mean,
No.
Is that okay?
this is,
Okay.
yeah, oh
Yeah.
my God.
Okay. So yeah, so we always knew that he was gonna be born a little early because with this specific condition, or it's recommended that you do not go into labor because again, it's very dangerous if that happens. So we originally were going to go in just for a C-section. They were aiming around 35, 36 weeks. So I always knew that he was going to be like early. 36 weeks was the goal. And then with placenta accreta, there's just different risks that can happen. You can develop bleeding, which I did have minor bleeding, but then the day that he was born, I woke up that morning with bleeding. So we rushed into the hospital and, was monitored there for a few hours. They then noticed that I was like fully contracting and essentially going into labor. So then from there, I had to have an emergency C-section to make sure again that I wasn't actually going into labor.
Crazy.
Yeah. So that was at 34 weeks. And we knew from there that he would likely need a NICU stay. I think you have to stay in the NICU if you're any
Under
less than
37.
30. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Under 37 weeks. And we were fully prepared for that. And then for the delivery of him was probably one of the most like traumatic days like of my life, aside from when we lost Lyla. So this is kind of going into like a little bit further about placenta accreta, but one of the main risk factors for that is when you're delivering, because the placenta is like likely so attached to the uterus, they don't know if they can get the placenta out. So that's why they have to have a C-section. That's why it has to have a special doctor. And they tell you when you're going through that you have a risk of having a hysterectomy. But at the time, my doctor had said, like, I think you're more mild, but we really can't tell until you go into labor. So we just didn't know what to expect. So we go in for a regular C-section, very similar to when I had Lyla. And, he came out, was great, healthy. And that was like, and Britt knows because she had two C-sections as well. The C-section itself is like pretty quick. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't
The
know,
baby
like
comes out in like 10 minutes.
literally, yeah. So that part, like he came out. Obviously, he was born early, so like needed a little support. He had like a CPAP on for oxygen. And then I had Owen go with him to the NICU because like the NICU doctors come in, they make sure that everything's good and they kind of like go. So that was like the first 20 minutes. And then from there, And fortunately, the doctor came over to me. At this point, I was like by myself because Owen was with Owen in the NICU. They said, we're so sorry, but you have like a very severe version of this. And so, we are likely going to have to do a hysterectomy, which
What a
is like,
terrible time to hear that, though, too.
yeah. So it was just a lot to process. I will say they were really good. And so I had a partial hysterectomy and they cut my ovaries and my cervix. So it was just my uterus that was taken out, just also because they wanted to make sure that like I had fertility preservation. So if I ever wanted to do another egg retrieval, they wanted to make sure that that was possible. They didn't want me going into like premature menopause because like I still have like hormones and everything. So anyways, that was about 5 hours.
Oh my God. I mean,
Um,
my C-section
After
was
that.
45 minutes and it was like the longest 45 minutes ever. Like after they
Yeah.
take the baby out, you're just like, okay, what do I do? And mine was like similar because Tyler was born at 37 weeks and his like
Hmm.
lungs weren't all developed, so he had to go to the NICU too, and Chris went
Yeah.
too. So I was just sitting there like da 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 da. Like,
Yeah.
hopefully they're doing a good job down there.
Right.
But it felt like forever.
Yeah. So yeah, it was like a 5 hour surgery. I was like completely awake for it. And it's just like I was just luckily
Staring at the
that
wall.
yeah, the anesthesiologists who were there were like great. And like I was like talking to them, like they were trying to like make sure that I was okay. Just because again, that surgery is just like so intense and they didn't want to make sure that like I'm doing okay. I ended up losing like half the blood in my body. And yeah, it was just a really
Those
crazy.
placentas, man. Placentas are the strangest body part.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they can kill you. Like so for Connor, I had to have a DNC. After I had Connor, I had him natural, and then they like couldn't get the placenta out. So it was like similar. It was like stuck, and they were like Chris had to sign this paperwork, blah blah blah. I had to get a blood transfusion. It was a whole thing. Yeah, and I had to
Yeah.
go to get a DNC. But like if they didn't get it out, like I would have died. It's just
Right.
crazy that like something that
Exactly.
is giving this baby life can also
Yeah.
kill you. Like if it stays in for too long after the fact. But then I'm like, but then
Yeah.
how does like Kourtney Kardashian drink it? I don't get
Right.
it.
I mean,
It's just
Yeah.
so weird. Pregnancy is just so crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, I think I'm so grateful that we're in Boston with like some of the best
Totally.
medical care in the US because like, I think honestly, like some other places, to your point, like, I think there's people that have died from that because like
Yeah.
they don't have the same level of OB care. And luckily, this was noticed in my pregnancy and I was able to be transferred to a medical team that like fully understood and has seen this and saw that because if this was something that just was like I was having a C-section and they weren't prepared for that, like you're right, like that it's a very dangerous situation and I could have died.
Yeah.
crazy.
So, yeah.
And
So, yeah.
like, I don't want to ask something that might be like insensitive. You don't even have to answer it, but I can't even like, it's like the amount of just emotions going through, like you just had your son,
Yeah.
the best emotion, right? Like, but then you're also having a hysterectomy, going through major surgery, like processing all of that information. Like it just, I mean, like what it must have just been almost like an out of body thing, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Like,
for
like,
sure. Like I feel like it didn't really hit me until like a little while later of like what really had just happened because again, he was in the NICU, we were driving in every day. We were like at least my like goal and I know Owen's was as well was just, to be there for him, making sure that he was good. And we were going to be able to bring him home, which luckily he had a pretty short stay and was there for just about 2 weeks. And we were able to bring him home and he did great. Again, he's like a thriving, almost 2-year-old little boy now. But yeah, it's just like, I think it was really like a couple months later where I was like, oh, wow, I can't believe that that was like part of my story. And I think where like, at least for me, like I was like, how did that happen? Like it was like, I, it, we lost our daughter at 2 weeks old, went through all of that, and then went through, over a year of IVF, had, other miscarriages, and then finally get pregnant with him. And then, most importantly, he's here and healthy, but then, it resulted in a hysterectomy. So it's kind of like, how did that even happen?
Yeah.
uh, so yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, not to like tangent in a way that would be weird, but I mean, leading to now, he's 2 years old.
Yeah.
You're, planning for baby number two.
Yeah.
And obviously your situation is different now, given that.
Yes.
So maybe like when you were thinking about what you were going to do for baby two, how were you kind of thinking about your options there?
Yep. So that's a great point. So probably like right after he turned 1, we really kind of just started to think about our options. And we, again, had already had the resources adoption because we, again, like I said, we had previously looked into that. But then also we wanted to also leave surrogacy as an option as well, because again, we did go through IVF and, we do have an embryo left. So because of that, we also wanted to look into surrogacy. We ultimately decided to go forward with surrogacy for to have a living sibling for him and to have another baby. But I don't want to like overshadow that whole conversation because it was a really big decision whether we were going to move forward with adoption or surrogacy. Ultimately, one of my reasons was so something that people I think talk about with adoption is, or some people are like, oh, why don't you just adopt? Adoption is actually like a very like big thing and it's really not easy at all.
What is
One,
it like the logistics? Like, what do they make it harder? You think that
yeah,
they would
so
make it easy?
yeah, so because it's like to your point, like you think like there are like children out there that are being
Yeah.
born and need to, be adopted and being loving homes, but the process of actually being approved to to go forward with adoption is like a big thing. So
It's
you have to
crazy.
like meet with an adoption agency. That process takes, I think it was going to be like 3 to 4 months of like going through the full application. And then from there, you have to have like a home study. You have to like meet with a lawyer. You have to be like, there's like so many different things of like, okay, now you're like approved to adopt,
It's terrible.
which
And
I
like
was
all the
like,
people that are probably going through that are like just had a hard time, like have probably gone
exactly.
through IVF or
Yeah.
something, like, and then to make them like do all that, like shame on
Yeah.
those adoption agencies
Yeah.
or the
So then
government, whoever it is.
Yeah. So then from there, because we were fine with that part, but the part that really was a struggle for me was that it's different in every state, but the birth mother, once you are like, matched with the birth mother, they do have the right to change their mind. And some of them it's up to 4 days after. So you could go to the
Oh, wow.
hospital, meet the birth mother, meet the child, be with them. And I think they said it's up to 10% of the cases where they change
Wow.
their mind, and it's called like a failed adoption. And so ultimately, I was like, I don't think I can do that.
Yeah.
Just because of like the trauma that we already went through with Lyla and losing her in that way, I was like, I don't think I can personally put myself in that situation
Yeah.
to like have this baby that I would so badly want to, raise and bring home with us, and then have them change their mind. So anyway, so that is why one of the reasons why we decided to not do adoption and really decided to move forward with surrogacy. And luckily for us, for surrogacy, we had previously gone through IVF. So that part of the process, we have an embryo and we're able to reach out to different agencies. And, I think we spoke to 3 different agencies on kind of their process, their timeline, financials, because I don't want to overshadow that. Surrogacy is a
Expensive.
very expensive thing to go through. But ultimately Owen and I didn't want to like make that decision based solely on a financial thing. Just like, 5 years from now, we didn't want to be like, well, why didn't we, pursue that?
And
So,
just
yeah.
not to interrupt Heather, but just for people who might be interested in that, because I think for like, I knew nothing about surrogacy until
Hmm.
you started this process. So the first step is making sure that you have embryos. So everything you described
Yes.
before,
Mhm.
that's what's going to happen first. And then you go to an agency.
Yeah, most agencies you can't even like have a consult with, or maybe they'll have a consult with you, but like you definitely can't move forward in any type of like contracting phase until you
Mm,
actually have embryos because they don't want to waste your time and they don't want
that
to
makes
waste,
sense.
a surrogate's time to do that. So we ultimately decided on a really boutique agency. They were actually referred to us. Our friend Maria, her friend used this agency, and I ended up talking with her like on the phone for like probably like an hour, hour and a half, and she kind of like went through everything about the agency, what their process was, and she had a great experience. So, and we also had a really great experience kind of talking with them and learning about the process. So we ultimately decided to move forward with them. So we signed up with them December of 2024 and are now in the process of surrogacy to have our, another sibling, hopefully, for Owen. So yeah, that's kind of where we are in that process. I know I just spoke for so long. So thank you to everyone that are hopefully still listening.
Oh,
Um,
I am like locked in right
they
now.
definitely are. I
yeah,
was just going to say,
Yeah.
uh,
yeah,
I feel like the past hour has like flown by.
yeah. And I think the last thing that I will say is again, I'm just like super passionate now about like all of this, all things like family planning, pregnancy and infant loss, and really like if I can help anyone in any way, like in any part of their process. So if it's someone going through IVF, if it's someone that's had a miscarriage, of course, if it's someone that's had a loss similar to ours with Lyla, it's just I love doing that. And I
I
want to
love that
continue
about
to
you.
do that. And again, continuing to do my work with Emma's Footprints. I'm actually going to be joining their board of directors this January to again just help really spread awareness and everything in the community. So yeah.
You are like literally so amazing. You go, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm going to cry.
It's not- I felt like I was gonna cry like 6 times during
Yeah,
this.
no facts.
What was I supposed to say?
Oh, I don't know, just something. Yeah,
Um,
but I feel like watching like you, Heather, through all of this, like just been like, I don't know, so amazing, so strong.
yeah.
And like, I feel like you always also, even through all of this, like you still show up for everyone. Like, I feel like you would always come to all of the like parties. And even when,
Hmm.
you were in the really like the dark times, like just, you're just the best. I'm so like, I don't know, can't say enough about you.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. But
Yeah.
and I also want to say, like, for anyone that's going through that, like, it's also okay not to. Like, I
Yeah.
in certain situations was able to kind of like, again, to Kristen's point, like show up for other people and be there for our friends and family who, were like having birthday parties and different things for their kids. But I ultimately like made the decision that I didn't want to not do that because of like what was happening with us. And I didn't want to look back one day and say, like, why wasn't I there for someone? I would want someone to be there for me. So yeah.
Whew, what an
Yeah.
Yeah.
episode.
So
Yeah. I mean, I feel like words don't even like do it justice. Like as someone who's had two children, like and I haven't gone through all that, and that was so hard. Like just being normally pregnant, like getting pregnant
mm,
is so hard. Yeah, it's just mind blowing to think about like all that you've been through and overcome. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, you're
thank
If
definitely
you told
like,
us like 5 years ago, like yeah, it was just totally different.
yeah. So, I mean, I know like even talking, sharing your story now, hopefully there's someone listening who's going to listen to your story and find some comfort and support in it. Definitely for anyone who is looking for a resource, Emma's Footprints is a fantastic place to go. Thank you so much for coming on
We
the
will be at
pod.
the walk,
We will
rain
be
or shine.
at that
yes.
walk.
And once I have all that information, I will share it with the snitches and we will make sure that that is shared for everyone to sign up, to donate, whatever you want to do. That would be greatly appreciated.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Well,
Heather.
Heather, thanks so much for joining us. Yeah, this was an amazing episode. And we'll be back on Friday with not as good of an episode, but it's still going to be okay.
How am I supposed to go
No,
back
it's
to my
still gonna be
day?
good. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.